All around the world, young women are shaking up the film industry. What's their inspiration? What's their secret? Secrets. 5 women, 5 stories. Now on an Arts 21 special. Ileana Sosa is an American with Mexican roots. She brings stories of immigrants to the screen.
I really strongly believe that once someone opens up and tells their story, something changes in them.
Muzna Almusafer is one of the very few movie directors from the Sultanate of Oman.
Especially in the West, they always have an idea that women in my country are oppressed. I don't feel it's true.
Elit Işcan is an actor from Turkey who's had enough of playing cliché roles.
Mostly there are like stereotypical roles for women.
Laura Vandewynckel of Belgium tackles some tough subjects through animation.
The problem is puppets are very fragile. So if you have moved them 10 times, you have to fix them 10 times.
Caitlin Mae Burke of the United States produces films that make no compromises.
If I have an opportunity to hire women, I will, because I believe in advancing our careers and sort of pulling people up. But also because I just want less bullshit on set.
How do all these women survive and get ahead in an industry where men set the tone? We talked with them at the 2018 Berlinale Talents, the Berlin Film Festival's platform for young filmmakers from around the world. Ileana Sosa was born in the United States, the daughter of Mexican immigrants.
My mom started cleaning houses. She was a maid, so they've sacrificed so much for my sister and I to have a better life. So for me, I don't take it lightly to be a filmmaker.
Ileana's films portray people at the edges of American society. Immigrants, without legal documents and without hope.
Ahora estoy embarazada de mi cuarto hijo. Estamos felices por nuestro próximo bebé y que es una niña, pero a la vez triste o preocupada por tantos cambios que ha habido en el país con la política. Yo y mi esposo, los dos somos indocumentados. Todos vamos a estar en el peligro de que nos deporten en cualquier momento.
The filmmaker chronicled the pregnancies of 2 women, one living in the United States illegally, the other with an undocumented Mexican husband. It was the period just after Donald Trump's electoral college victory.
After the election, I dreamt that there were vigilante groups going door to door in our neighborhood. And my son was born and I was holding him in my arms. And I was hiding my husband in the floorboards.
The political tension right now in the US is really heavy. And it's affecting people in very traumatic ways. So making a documentary about these kinds of issues is a way to allow these communities to express themselves and to have that platform.
Ileana is well acquainted with such stories. She also has undocumented friends and relatives. El Paso, Texas, where she grew up, is right on the Mexican border.
Growing up on the border, for me, is a constant inspiration, and that landscape of the desert, of the stillness, of that is very much present in my work.
Ileana's first feature, Child of the Desert, tells the story of personal loss. The mother of a fallen American soldier encounters a young Mexican man who has no papers. They are 2 of the many dispossessed, and they help one another.
Mataron a mi hermano. Mi hermano dijo que corriera. Y corrí.
¡Tomen estos, pinche cabrones! ¡Tomen esos! ¡Guarden!
After Trump's victory, Mexican immigrants came under pressure. Racism started coming out in the open, and Ileana began making documentaries.
Directing is really a privilege. So for me, crossing over to documentary is political because you're able to give a platform for stories that people don't normally see.
Muy contentos. Me gustaría que creciera en un lugar donde no hubiera todos estos problemas que ahorita estamos viendo con la política, que fuera más tranquilo, que no hubiera alguien que le pudiera hacer un daño, que la vieran mal por ser hija de inmigrantes.
The reality is that it's difficult for women of color to make films. It's still a very sexist and racist industry, right? So I think it's more difficult because sometimes you're not taken seriously. Trusting your gut and knowing that you do have something to say, I think that's like the secret.
Muzna Almusafer, one of Oman's very few women directors, lives and works by the principle, never stop believing in the power of your own cinematic vision.
When I was a kid, I always thought being a boy is very cool. But then I changed this idea and I realized it's not necessarily to be a man, to be strong. Like especially in the West, they always have an idea that women in my country are oppressed. I don't feel it's true because I grew up in a house where my mom was stronger than my dad sometimes and my grandmother.
For her final university project, Muzna dealt with female gender roles. What is a woman in the eyes of society?
For some people, I am somebody, and for others, I'm nobody. When they see me, they only could read on my forehead that I'm either a Bedouin, or Islamist, or simply a ghost.
A niqab is a story of a woman with a veil, wearing a veil, thinking or questioning herself before going to a rendezvous with her lover, questioning what she is in front of the society and how people see her.
Inside me might live a lonely child, or a loving mother, or an angry prostitute.
I think there is a social veil, in every society there is a social veil that blocks you from expressing and talking and in the Gulf where I grew up, we have men wear veil and women wear veil.
Nobody was born with niqab on his face, except for me.
There aren't many filmmakers in Muzna's home country, and funding is all but non-existent. She's working to change that through Oman's only film festival. This Arab state is largely desert and still developing both socially and economically. Culturally, it's close to the Gulf states, but with strong African influences.
I come from a Baluchi background. My parents spoke always a different language than Arabic. And I went to school and I heard Arabic, I heard Lawati, I heard Swahili, I heard Baluchi, I heard Jabali, which is all those, ethno languages. And I felt it's interesting to speak about Oman from a different point of view.
Muzna decided to shoot her second film in Zanzibar, a former overseas colony of Oman. Two half-brothers meet. One of them grew up in Muscat, Oman's prosperous capital, the other in impoverished Zanzibar. The two brothers and two countries are connected by family and history. As a filmmaker, Muzna strives to reflect her country's cultural diversity, devoid of cliches.
I feel always very responsible towards my country, towards the region where I come from.
But how to support filmmakers and finance productions that don't fit existing definitions? For that, it takes courageous producers like Caitlin Mae Burke.
The director has given birth to this idea that is the movie, and my job is to make sure that it has all of the things that it needs to be successful. And sometimes that's money, and sometimes that's other creative partners, if that's a good composer, if that's an editor, and sometimes it's just taking the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning from the director who's panicked that we're just never going to finish this.
Caitlin is an award-winning producer of independent films in the United States. Among them are quirky animations.
To cure your impotence, you want me to implant goat testicles into you.
Well, Doc, that can't be worse than the nuts I got.
And short subjects about women comedians struggling to make it.
I don't know why I'm doing this.
You know you have something that these other animals don't have.
Please welcome up to the stage your next performer, Mel Vitale.
That's what makes us stronger than everybody else.
And provocative sports documentaries.
You're not giving me anything right now.
We're gonna be hoping and wishing for miracles for Dante.
Salvatore was charged with robbery and possession of an instrument of crime.
You don't want to be like everybody else that didn't make it.
Caitlin won an Emmy for this documentary about America's social realities.
I've gotten a tattoo for every feature I've done, and I like the idea that they've changed me, and so I want to mark each one with a physical change. It's about a football team, and so I got their team cheer tattooed on my ankle and a crown because they're kings.
It's like really quiet. Really
Whenever she can, Caitlin makes it a point to hire women for her film projects.
It's a feature doc. It's about this.
She knows from experience what it means to try to make it in a male domain.
I think one of the secrets to being successful as a female producer is to be constantly working to eliminate female from that description. I'm really excited about the idea that in the future, I won't have to be actively hiring women in order to advance their careers, because it will just be taken for granted that everyone is being judged on their merit.
They also need guts and patience, especially now in the US. Caitlin likes inconvenient political topics as an adversary.
Are we gonna let the nation see how mad we are?
It's a no-holds-barred documentary about a Republican and Trump supporter who plays fast and loose with racist statements.
Those things that he said in art voice, calling for the death of our president from mad cow disease, said that his wife, our First Lady Michelle, looks like a man and she should go back to Africa and play with a gorilla in a cave. For him to say something like that so freely, it caused me to become an angry black man. I tolerated a lot of things over the years, but what I will never tolerate is such verbal, conscious disrespect and hatefulness towards another human being simply because of the color of their skin.
As a producer working in the time of Trump, it's a little anxiety-inducing because I'm worried about, we're watching the rights being taken away from group after group, and I'm sort of wondering when it's coming for us.
To finance such films, Caitlin also produces light entertainment shows for TV. That's the reality of independent film. Very few can make a living from it. How many compromises do women have to make? 24-year-old Elit Işcan is a Turkish actor. She's had roles in award-winning feature films, but her bread and butter has long been shallow daytime serials.
Most of the stories are being told by a male perspective. Mostly I'm dealing with people that are older than 40, 50 years old, so they can be there. I feel like I'm being devalued by them sometimes. I feel like they don't really care about what I'm thinking, what I'm saying.
When Elit is given more acting freedom, the characters she creates can be highly complex personalities, nonconformist and vulnerable.
My Only Sunshine was about growing up story of a young woman who lives in a lawless environment and her rebellion against this bad world. She's being hurt by her environment, by the people around her, and she doesn't experience love.
Bir de küçük rakı.
Paran hepsine yetmiyor. Kaç oldun kız sen?
13, yok 14.
Maşallah. Bak rakılar orada. Git kendin al. Dur ben vereyim.
She tries to run away from that world and to go. I feel like my political opinion might be more important than my skills. I am a political person, but nowadays I don't feel myself very comfortable about telling my political opinion publicly. At least I had the privilege, and I'm feeling myself very lucky and proud that I could take part of these projects that also shows where I'm standing, what I'm standing for.
As she did in Mustang, the story of 5 sisters who are too rebellious for rural Turkey. An innocent game with some boys takes a disastrous turn.
Düşürdünüz bizi. Erkeklerin enstelerini sürtünmüşsünüz.
The girls are locked up, abused and forced into marriages. But they don't give up. It's an unflinching examination of Turkish society, which, under President Erdogan, is drifting towards extremes: masculine, Muslim and misogynist. This Turkish-French co-production was acclaimed in many countries, but in Turkey it was of course highly controversial.
I was feeling very powerful while we were shooting it, as if we could take the control of the world, you know, as if we could burn that house down.
Oluyor ya.
We can do more films that doesn't objectify women but take them as subjects. Don't show them as victims but as figures that they can speak up for themselves.
For a long time, that has not been the case. Animator Laura Vandewynckel takes things to extremes until they reach critical mass. Here, a woman is formed from modelling clay. God makes her according to his own absurd ideas. Moving stories that raise disturbing questions. Laura has her own way of presenting them.
The film questions the violence against women. There had happened a rape case in India, which had disturbed me a lot, so I wanted to make something about that. I was interested by the bystanders effect, which means that the more people are present in a situation of violence, the less big the chance that someone will intervene.
Ignorance, apathy, and the fine cracks in our well-oiled, affluent society. Laura expresses themes like these in a seemingly naive cinematic language, which only makes the stories all the more disturbing. In Paradise, refugees try to cross the Mediterranean, while overworked Europeans travel to those very countries for a couple of weeks' vacation. Our paradise, their hell.
You imagine the situation in which your puppets are in. So, for example, if I was animating the moment of the puppets in the boats, the refugee boats, you kind of imagine yourself in this boat as well, in this situation. So I was thinking, if I was in this boat together with these other people, what would I do?
But empathy carries a certain risk. Simple truths imply simple answers.
There's something tricky about these themes, because there's the danger of becoming moralistic or cynical, and that's a trap I want to avoid.
What have we got?
They make uncomfortable films. They're determined to go their own way. But these women are still a long way from their destination. The Weinstein scandal and the Me Too movement have set wheels in motion, and these women filmmakers are helping to move them. Iliana's next film is a very personal one, the story of her grandfather. It will follow his footsteps from Mexico to the United States. Financing projects like this is never easy, but she's optimistic.
This year is actually really promising to see, for example, the first female cinematographer to be nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it's amazing, right? But it's 2018. It's like, wow. Like, you know, that should have happened years ago.
Caitlin Mae Burke uses every opportunity to find an audience for her films, festivals, theatres and online, but she'd like much more.
My Emmy lives at my mom's house, and she keeps asking for Emmy to get a boyfriend, so it would be really nice if his name could be Oscar.
Elit continues to pursue unconventional roles. Her next project is a vampire series set in Istanbul, produced exclusively for online viewing.
Government has less control in these platforms. It's more free.
In her next film, Muzna will again be looking at Oman's history, this time focusing on the culture of the nomads.
We have the right timing to create more work in cinema. It's the right timing.
Laura's puppets are venturing into real life and interacting with our world.
Sometimes I want to change the world, but I cannot. So I'm aware of the small little things I'm doing, but I think it's very good to try.